this lesson is going to be really fun. We're going to be drawing our color wheel. So this is going to give you a good opportunity to feel what the difference is between using oil-based pencils on their own and using wax-based pencils on their own. We'll also get a taste of blending and layering within this lesson, and we'll be able to compare what it feels like to use each type of pencil at the end of this lesson. So let's get into it. So this is what the worksheet looks like. On the left side we're using the Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils, and on the right we're using the Prismacolor Premier pencils. So the number and the name of the pencil is listed over here, and we are just going to follow along this color wheel in that way. Okay, so we're going to start off with the Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils, which are the oil-based pencils. Okay, now we can begin with our Faber-Castell Polychromos color wheel. I'm going to start off with the first one, which is dark cadmium orange, number 115. So the way you're going to color in your wheel is this line over here is pretty much going to be the middle of what you're going to be coloring in with your pencil. So for example, you're going to lightly take your pencil and follow it through to the center. That is the section that you're going to color in. So continue to color in until you get a pretty full color. Don't worry about the texture of the paper. We'll be sorting that out in the end. Okay, now that you have this color in the center, you're going to continue on with that color, but very lightly towards the next line. So use very little pressure on your pencil. You're pretty much just grazing the surface of the paper. Then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. The whole idea of this color wheel is to have these colors all go into one another. So now we're going to move on to the next color, which is the dark chrome yellow 109, and we're going to do the same thing. So the middle section of this part of the wheel, you're going to color in with this pencil. then you're going to go up to about here with this color over the top of the other color. And you just want to blend that in. And then on this side, just grazing the surface of the paper, you're going to continue on. So now I'll show you another color before I carry on and do this in a time-lapse form. So turning into the Cadmium Yellow 107, again we'll do the same thing. So what you're essentially doing is you're creating another triangle when you move on to the next color, and then you are going to color that in, and then you're doing a lighter layer over the areas towards the left and the areas towards the right. So you're already getting a gradation of even colors. You can't see a specific line there, and that's what we're aiming for. So when you get into these darker colors, you're going to put a very light layer over this section. So that you don't see any particular lines. It just looks like it's fading into the next color. Use a light hand. You're never going to press really hard. You're always going to use a light hand, because the harder you press, the more you smooth out the tooth of the paper, and then it's not going to give you the effect that you want, and it's also going to limit you to the amount of layers of color that you can place onto your paper. So you always want to use a light hand. I'm going to continue on with the circle and then we'll get back into blending it nice and smooth. Okay, now that we have done that, we are going to blend it in with our zested solvent. One thing you would have noticed is obviously you took up 2 whole triangles of space with one color, and then the center of the color is pretty much where the line is. So you're going to color in 2 triangles, and then the next color you're going to color in 2 triangles, and you're going to keep going on until you finish that way. And you can also see that it has a really nice gradation of all the colors. You don't see any specific lines apart from the print itself, and it's just going to blend nice and smooth. So dip your brush into your solvent. Remember to have a paper towel handy so that you can dab off any excess. And then we'll start from the lightest color, and just the top of the color you're going to brush over the top. Make sure your brush is not saturated in solvent, because it will just become very blotchy if it is. You have a minimal amount on your brush, and then when you feel like it's completely dry and it cannot blend anymore, like now, then that's when you dip it in again and dab off any excess. It's good to work in tiny little circular motions if you don't want to get any sort of brush strokes that are too obvious. So we'll blend all across the color wheel like this. That takes away the texture of the paper, it brings out the pigment of the pencil, and it shows you how you can blend your colors into one another smoothly. So already in this tutorial you're getting a little bit of a taste of what it is to layer in colored pencils and how to apply your colored pencils to your paper. So you're not using a lot of pressure, you're going to always use a light hand. You'll continue to layer the colors on top of one another until you get the result that you're looking for. Okay, now that we've blended that in with the solvent, you can see what a massive difference that makes. So it's got a really nice smooth gradation throughout the entire thing. One tip I can give you if you want to try and get it even smoother is take a piece of tissue and you can, in small circular motions, you can also blend the color together a little bit. So that's just a handy tip. After you've used the brush and solvent and it's mostly dry, you can smooth it out even more with a piece of tissue. And that is super smooth and so beautiful and something to really be proud of. You've practically created the entire color spectrum. The only thing we haven't done in this is go from dark to light by adding black and then sort of fading into the white. But we're not going to do that. We don't have to worry about that. The point is that you are able to layer your colors from one color to the next and create a color wheel with stacks and stacks of colors. So we only use 14 colors, but who knows how many colors we actually created from this. This would have already given you a really great feel of your oil pencils, and now we're going to move on to doing the same thing with our wax-based pencils. So using the Prismacolor Premier wax-based pencils, I'm going to start off with number 1, Goldenrod PC1034, and we're going to do exactly the same as what we did with the first color wheel. So you're pretty much going to color in both triangles on either side of the word or the color. You're going to use a light hand, you never use a lot of pressure. If you use small circular strokes like this, you can go in any direction and it's not going to leave streaky marks. As long as you're using the same pressure as well, then that's really good. And then the center part of this is going to be the darkest, and then it's going to fade into the lighter part. Okay, so we've colored in the entire color wheel with the Prismacolor pencils, and now we're going to do the same thing and blend it with the solvent. So we've just completed our Prismacolor Premier color wheel and it looks amazing. It's so much fun being able to create and blend colors like this, and the minute you blend it with solvent, that's even more fun, because as you put the crayon or the pencil over the paper, it looks quite bland and you don't realize how colorful these pencils really are until you apply the solvent. Now that you've created your color wheel, you would have learned a little bit. So you would have gotten a feel of how amazing it is to blend using a solvent. And you also would have gotten a taste of how to layer. So even though we didn't layer multiple layers upon each other, we did still layer. So that's the whole sort of concept and idea of drawing something realistically, is the use of layering your colored pencils together. A few things that you would have noticed while using these pencils is that the oil-based pencils have a much harder core, and they keep a sharper point for longer. So that they have a different feel to the wax-based pencils. So the wax-based pencils have a softer core and they don't keep a sharp point for as long, but they feel almost creamy, so they feel really nice when you apply them to the paper. The other thing you would have noticed is that when you blend it with your solvent, the oil-based pencils are not as pigmented as the wax-based pencils. And when you blend the wax-based pencils, they have a very, very strong pigment come through. So that's the differences between the two pencils. Now imagine using those two pencils together. You're going to get extreme pigment, you're also going to get extreme details, because if you're going to use very fine details, you're going to use your oil-based pencils to create those fine details, because the core holds a stronger point for longer and it is harder. When you want a very nice pigment coming out, you're going to rely on your wax-based pencils, because putting those two pigments of color together is just going to form an amazing result. So the next lesson is going to be really fun for you guys as well, where we get into the true method of layering with colored pencils.